Now that we've got plenty of practice working with mouse click event, it's time to try a different event. This time we'll work with a related event called mouse over. And in the old days of the web, believe it or not, it's what people used to use to create rollovers. It's not as popular today as it used to be since today we use CSS for that, but it can still be useful for certain things. Here's a good way we could use it for our project. Since our previews are pretty tiny and they don't really show the entire image, when we roll over one of these, it would be nice to see a bigger version of the image. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Let me show you the HTML and CSS. You may be noticing that my cursor looks a little bit different when I roll over these. That's because of a CSS rule that I'll show you in just a bit. So if we take a look at our index file, you'll see that it's pretty similar to the way that it used to be, except that we've changed the H2 as well as the paragraph tag right here, just to have some different text. And the CSS has some additional classes towards the end. So you can see the preview class right here and the CSS that targets the image inside the preview tag. So these are two elements that we're going to generate. And in this video, we're going to learn how to generate events with JavaScript. And you may be noticing this new thing right here. Whenever you're on an image, it's going to change the cursor. And this time it's going to change it to a PNG. So this is just an image that is in my images folder. I've added that too. That's a picture of a magnifying glass. And that's what makes the rollover on top of an image look like a little magnifying glass, which will work for this project. So let's go into our JavaScript. You can also tell that I've started the JavaScript a little bit here. And essentially, I want to make sure that I select the UL that has the class of grid. And then I'm going to add an event listener. And this time we're going to do a mouse over event instead of a click event. I still want to make sure that I only activate this if somebody's rolling over the images. So I've got this line right here, and now I can start creating my elements. So to create an element in JavaScript, you use the create element method, and it works something like this. So I'm going to create a variable, call it my element, and then I'm going to say document.createElement, and then I'm going to pass along the element that I want to create. So the first element that I want to make is a div. So I'll type in div right here. And what this does is create an element in memory. It's not going to show up anywhere on your page. It's just in memory. So we'll need to attach it to a DOM element. Now, before we do that, though, I can do anything I want to this element before I display it. So I can add classes to it. I can say something like my element and then say, make the ID of this element something. So you could say, make it an ID of rollover or whatever. Now, you can also do a class, but that's a little bit weird in JavaScript because you can't just say my element.class. That word class means something to JavaScript. So you have to use something called class name. And then you could just give it a class name. What we want to use here is preview because that's what we call the class. And then we attach this element somewhere in our page. Now, where you want to attach it is pretty important. You need to attach it on the same level as the list item. So we know that if we say e.target, it's going to give us the image. We can't really attach it to the image because images are not containers. So we want to attach it to the list item that has the image inside it. So what we need to do is ask for the parent of the current target. So I'll say parent node, and then I'll do a pen child, which is how you add an element. And then we pass it the name of the element we want to attach, which in this case would be my element. So if I save this, I'm going to switch over to my project. And what I want to do is right-click and select Inspect Element. If I do that, I want to open up this div that has all the art and then this unordered list. And I'm going to open up this third image right here. And what I want to do is come over here very carefully and roll over this element. And actually, I need to open this triangle up. So when I roll over this element, you'll see that it's generating. Actually, this element is down here. It's generating these classes right here. So if I keep on rolling over, it's going to generate my div with the class of preview, which is awesome. It's actually doing it whenever I roll over any of these. So it's generating a ton of them right now. But that means that it's working. We've attached the element correctly. So let me go over back to my code. And what we want to do now is attach an image. So the code is going to be pretty similar. It's always a three-step process. You create the element, then you can change any properties, and then you append the element to an existing element in the DOM. So here we go. We're going to create a variable. It's going to be called myimg. And I'm going to say document.createElement, and this time I'm going to use an image. Next, I need to calculate the location of this new element. This is going to be the high resolution version of the image. And if you look very carefully at how I set up my images, any one of the image's thumbnails has a high resolution version of it that has the exact same name without the underscore TN. So all I need to do is get rid of this underscore TN.jpg, and I would have the name of the high res. So let's go ahead and show you how I do that. So right here, I'm going to create a variable for the image location of my new high resolution image. And I'll set that to be the target of the current event, which will be in our case, the image that we rolled over, and set that variable to be the source or the location of that image. So this will give us a low resolution version with the underscore TN. Next, I'm going to say my IMG. So this new element that I created, the location of it is going to be equal to IMG location. So wherever the low resolution version of the image is. And then I'm going to use the substring method. So it's substr. And what I want to do with this method is get rid of the last 7 characters. So this method takes 2 things. First, the beginning position, and then the ending position of what you want to get the piece of string from. So what we want to do here is ask for the image location and the length of that minus 7 characters. So if this is some picture underscore tn.jpg, it's going to get rid of all that underscore tn.jpg and then give us the name of the high resolution file, to which we'll add the .jpg part. Okay, now that we've got the image, then we need to come right here and append this to an existing DOM element. Now we've already got an existing DOM element, the div that we created with a class of preview. So that's where we want to put it. And that would be in my element.append child. And we want to append is this new my image, which should be the high resolution version of our thumbnail. So let's go ahead and save this and check it out. Let me go ahead and refresh the page. And if we did everything carefully, when we roll over these, we should see the high resolution version. Looks like we got a small error. Let's check that out. See what it's saying. DOM exception. Okay, let's go back here and check our code. Be really, really careful. I put this in single quotes, which is not correct. I'm actually calling the variable right here, not the in quotes name my image. So save that, back over here, refresh, and when we roll over these, we should see the high resolution version of the image. Now this is not perfect. We obviously need to do some work. Let me refresh that. It's actually loading all of them on top of each other. So this kind of shows you how to create elements. We obviously need to figure out how we're going to get rid of some elements and continue working with the DOM.